Thank you so much for joining this episode of our Peer Perspective series. I'm Haley. I'm the Hope for HIE social worker. We have Clarissa, Andrew, and Sarah here with us today as part of our panel. They are going to be talking a little bit more about the more medically complex side of HIE and just sharing a little bit about their journey with HIE. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But first off, as always, we are not giving any medical advice, and this is just parents kind of sharing their journey with other parents. Please definitely check out our YouTube channel, or if you have any questions, please go to your child's medical care providers to get more information. But we have also tons of videos on our YouTube channel about all kinds of things HIE related, so feel free. And then if you have any questions, my information is there as well. Please feel free to reach out to me. So we're going to start with just each of you guys kind of sharing a little bit about your child's HIE diagnosis, when it happened, and a little bit. And then also after that, if you just share kind of a little bit about what age did you kind of feel like you and your medical team were able to kind of let you know what they kind of thought your child's needs were going to be more long term.
I can start. Hey, I'm Clarissa. I live on the west coast of Canada, and my HIE guy is Huxley. He turned 10 this year. Can't believe it's been a decade. Holy moly. His injury was in utero, just the last few days or so, they think, before he was born. And he has a global brain damage. So, yeah, global brain injury. So that affects every aspect of his life. He has total care needs and lots of support, but lots of joy. And we always try to, give him the best life possible. In terms of when did we know, his neurologist, I feel like she knew immediately, almost like when she did the MRI, and they always want to say, but we have to wait and see. I know you guys love that phrase. We all love that so much. But yeah, she was very sure. Although, like I said, didn't really explain all that to us at that time, but did sort of mention like the possibility of CP, cerebral palsy in the future. So we always had that in the back of our minds. And around one, when he was about one, he really didn't hit milestones and wasn't doing the things. So I was pretty sure in my heart. And at age 2, I was very sure and like pretty confident about what his future was going to look like. That's me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Cressman.
Andy Cressman.
We live in the southern US. Our son is 12 and a half, which is crazy to me as well. And I feel like we've had a pretty similar experience, Clarissa. We had a typical pregnancy. We had undiagnosed vasoprevia. And so when I went in to be induced in order to have him, things kind of fell apart, and but we didn't know why. And C-section, and later that night, everything hit the fan. And so we ended up spending a month in the NICU. He's also total care, has a lot of needs, loves music, is overall a pretty happy guy. But I feel like we kind of came to the realization, I think, at different times. Or I should say maybe not realizations, but like acceptance of things at different times. But I think we realized pretty early on that it was pretty severe injury. They also used, global brain damage, catastrophic, really, really uplifting terms for new parents. But yeah, our neurologist was pretty open from the beginning too. And there was a lot of wait and sees. But even like thinking back, like I can just like picture her face as she said things. So like I knew, I'm like, oh, okay, we'll wait and see, but we're not going to hold our breath on that one. I think we fell off the milestones very early. He doesn't have a lot of purposeful hand movement. So it was pretty early on that we kind of realized how things were going to be.
There wasn't I can't really recall a specific like aha moment where I realized where he was going to be, but I do recall. So the first day, actually the day after he was born, like he started having seizures about 8 hours after birth, and they intubated him. They had to transport him from the hospital where he was born to our local children's hospital. And because he was having seizures, he had to have an EEG followed by an MRI, and the EEG was basically flat, and the MRI was awful. And I remember my dad is actually he's a retired radiologist, and they let him look at the scans. And how old was I when Cole was born? 30 something. I'd never seen him cry until that day. He said it's the worst. He says the worst image of a neonate I've ever seen. He couldn't even call him by his name, called him a neonate, and kind of as a defense mechanism. And so for the first month, we were really hanging on by a thread. Spent a month in the NICU, but obviously he pulled through. As far as milestones, I do remember. I don't know if you remember this. We have a friend who they have a daughter that was born either the day before him or the day after him, or something like a week within when he was born. And they ended up moving out of the city where we live, and they came back for a visit about when our kids were about 3 or 4 months old.
Mm.
And this is, we have 2 kids now, but our HIE child is our first one. So we were new parents. We have no idea what to expect with kids. And I'll never forget just the juxtaposition between the 2 kids. Like, she was making eye contact and had really good head movement and was moving her arms and doing all the typical movements that 0 to 3 month olds do, and ours just wasn't. And that was like, oh wow, okay, he's not hitting the milestones. But the other stuff sort of happened over time, as various medical needs arose. But I do remember that moment at around the 3 month mark.
Whereas I apparently completely forgot that moment just now, like, oh wait, yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually hadn't thought about that in a
Yeah.
long time until
That
just
was
now.
that was
But
pretty brutal. We also had friends whose kids were born around the same time, but they had moved away. So when they came back and saw, it was like, oh my gosh, his head's so big. But no, it was not microcephaly.
right.
And so that was like kind of like us picking up on these things that we didn't know ahead of time. I'm actually kind of glad about that, because I think we would have, as high strung as we were and as stressed as we were, we probably would have been even more so if we had a typical child to compare him to. So that kind of kept us
Yeah, that's a
grounded.
good point.
For sure. The next thing that I think would be super helpful for parents, especially new parents, just to talk about kind of what kind of things do you recommend, or what do you think is helpful when you're kind of accepting this HIE diagnosis? And then as you continue to get further needs diagnosed or further diagnoses, or I know in our groups, families have talked about, when you make a feeding tube decision, or when you kind of have equipment delivered for the first time and your child hasn't had any kind of adaptive equipment. So kind of maybe if you could just discuss the different emotions you went through, when that happened with your child, different ages, and then what did you feel like supported you the most during those times when you were a little bit kind of taken aback by something? What could people have done, or what, did you feel like was helpful?
Should I just go first each time?
Go ahead.
It just flows nice. So yeah, you're just transported me back to that time. It's a lot going back to that place.
Yeah.
I don't go back there very often, but yeah, I remember sitting with the neurologist, just so cold and clinical, giving this diagnosis. And like, I think about it now, I remember like really hating her and like did not warm to her for the longest time, because that was the person that told us the news, and I just like put a lot of hatred on the person, to be quite honest with you. But then now I can think about like how horrendous it would be to deliver that news to families. So I actually feel bad for her. But yeah, I don't know. I was like paralyzed with fear. It was very, very scary. Like the worst news I could have ever been given in my life, I think. Yeah, so that initial shock and devastation. And I feel like my hospital in the town that we live in, like they really do a disservice to families. There's not enough support. Like I think we saw a social worker that gave us a quilt that a bunch of grannies had made, and like we still have it. It's still so special, but like come on guys, like we need extensive therapy after that. Like that is come on. So we were brand new parents. He was our first child. We've had 2 others since, but that was our first child. And so yeah, welcome to parenthood it was yeah, I know. I just laugh because it's just absolutely outrageous. Like, and I was kind of okay, sort of, like you guys were saying, we also like we didn't have people close. So we were the first of our friends to have kids. So we didn't have any experience, which I do think now that you say that was really helpful because I wasn't comparing, not really. We were going to like some baby groups here and there. And at a point I had to sort of distance myself like when all those babies, like at first it was like, oh yeah, I can be here, we're all just new moms freaking out and we're all emotional and whatever, and I felt like I could like slide under the radar. But once their babies started to move around and stuff, I was like, oh no, I can't be here anymore, and it was way too painful. And I didn't want to share that part. Like, I really didn't tell people about our story at all back then. Like, I was hiding, I think, to protect myself. But I don't, it seems silly though, that I wouldn't, I openly share so much about us now, but back then I wasn't ready, I think. But when he was about 6 months, that's where I hit a point of like, okay, I'm not okay anymore. Like, I think I was in denial and kind of flailing through like new parenthood. And then at 6 months, like that sticks out so strongly in my mind where I was like, I am depressed, I am anxious, I am like not well anymore. And I ended up reaching out to like postpartum services. So one thing my city has is if you have like postpartum depression, and they slid me in under like postpartum anxiety due to like our situations. We got like 8 sessions covered through our government service. So that was really nice. I got some counseling sessions after I was hit rock bottom and had to reach out to them myself. But that was really helpful. So I always say to people, just seek out that support. If it's not coming to you, like go get it, because it helped a lot. And she really said to me, like, well, you need to find your tribe. You need to find your community. Who are your people that have kids like yours? And at that time, I hadn't found Hope for HIE. Like I was saying to Haley before, like, I find it so amazing that the people that are like day one, like my kid was diagnosed today, right? When you see those posts, and I'm like, go, you guys go get it. But I didn't find out about them till 6 months, where this counselor was like, you need to go find your people, go online. And I did, and there they were. And anyway, you guys know, but Hope for HI, like, I always say they saved my life, but they did. That's my spiel.
Yeah, no, I'm again kind of following you there because I feel like we just like trucked along, like did everything we were supposed to, had to of course follow up to get into early interventions because shockingly enough, everything didn't go smoothly into that. Got into it, literally just doing all the therapies, had everything lined up. We lucked out that our daycare was still able to take him, not really concerned. It did help that they only had a couple of kids, and so that worked in our advantage. And they were wonderful with him, let our like therapists come and go as needed. But it was really on us to just keep going. And I don't think it was until he was almost 1, and this was at the height of what we call the Great Hunger Strike of 2012, where he stopped eating. And we held off on getting a G tube, which now looking back was stupid. But at the time, that's what we did. And right, it just seemed so scary for us. And we were like, no, this is fine. He's going to eat again. But it led to some pretty severe health issues for myself. And that's when it kind of was like, okay, maybe we should like do something to kind of fix this. And so that was kind of, I think, the turning point maybe for us realizing that we still have to take care of ourselves, and like seeing how much this really was affecting us, even if we weren't recognizing it outwardly.
Yeah, you're in survival mode, right? And you're literally trying to make it day to day. And on top of that, especially this was the case for me, and it is the case for every parent. I think it's such a level of desperation that you didn't think possible, right? And you've got, this is your first child, or maybe it's not your first child, but it's your child, and an incredibly traumatic event has happened to your child, and so you will go to the gates of hell to try and help your child, right? And that's exhausting. And so I think 2 things. One, in our case, like, yeah, the health issue is what, and you mentioned rock bottom, Clarissa. It's so funny it's not funny, but like you say that so matter of factly. And I can think of a couple of my rock bottom moments now too, now that I've got some distance from it, and I can talk about it matter of factly. And yeah, if I could go back, I'd be like, all right, slow down, take a breath. You, not only has your child experienced trauma, you have experienced trauma, and I have to remind myself of this all the time. You're going through grief constantly, right? Everybody thinks of grief as losing a loved one and death, right? And that's typically how people associate grief, but it's the same thing. You've lost the child that you thought you were going to get, right? So it's a form of grief, and whatever the steps of the grieving process apply, and no two people grieve in the same way. And that manifested with us where, Sarah had her way of dealing with things. I had my way of dealing with things. My way just so happened to be like, I just wanted to take action. I wanted to go try this therapy or that therapy, do this, do that, stretch him this many times a day, whatever it was. I just wanted to take action,
Mhm.
right? And that was just absolutely exhausting. Um, and it really wasn't until, and I think Sarah arrived at this place of acceptance a lot earlier than I did, and it wasn't overnight, but I distinctly recall the 10-year mark as being significant for me, where like we had just come off, we'd spent years burning every disposable dollar of income and every day of vacation time on therapies.
Mhm.
Like we didn't really take vacations. We would go and let's go do stem cells here. Let's go do this therapy there. Let's go try this. Let's go try that. And it's not relaxing. And it's not good for anybody. And he didn't enjoy it. And it really, the bang for the buck wasn't there. And so finally, I remember back then I looked at people that were further along in the journey that had kind of accepted things, and I was like, I refuse to accept. We're going to keep trying, blah blah blah. But it was so liberating when I came to that moment where I was like, you know what? He's not enjoying this. I'm not enjoying this. Nobody in our family is enjoying this. We had another child at that point. Let's focus on giving him good life experiences, and it really was like a huge weight that
Mhm.
was lifted off my shoulders. And I think our son is particularly good at picking up emotions of people around him. I mean, he's nonverbal, cognitive delays, whatever. I mean, because he's nonverbal, sometimes it's hard to gauge, but he is super receptive. And I think he was picking up for many years on the negative emotions that I personally was experiencing and all the stress. I think that rubbed off on him. But conversely, when I sort of came to a healthier place and wanted to just enjoy him and treat him like a normal kid that wants to have to the extent possible normal kid experiences, that was extraordinarily liberating. Not only for me, but I think it made a huge difference in him too, emotionally and as far as like not reaching milestones, but I mean being more engaged.
Mhm.
Um, I've gone off on a huge tangent, but I think like
No.
the point is though the grief thing I really do have to remind myself, and because sometimes I'm sure my bias for action, as I like to call it, aggravates Sarah to no end, and so that can create uh adversity in a relationship. But like when you recognize, and God bless her, she's as patient with me as you can be. Just recognizes that that's how I kind of deal with things. And Sarah like is much more introspective and wants to like take her time with things. And sometimes that drives me crazy until I remember, okay, this is how she deals with things. And it's literally just like, not to be cheesy. Love is patient, love is kind, and that's kind of how it plays out, right?
Yeah, we didn't find Hope for HIE till he was
It's
about
like
4
4, yeah.
or so. I knew myself, my anxious self, enough to not Google anything. I'm still very proud of myself for not doing that. Clearly for years. Because Andy finally did it. I think it was like a Friday night or something. We were like super cool hanging out at home. And he comes in, he's like, "Hey, check out this group I just found." And so we started engaging in that. And that's where I think we found our people. We were fortunate. We have like a good core group of like friends here and family here. And so we never felt alone or like we didn't have support, but it wasn't the type of support that we were like craving in the sense of someone to bounce ideas off of, or like who knew what we were going through. We had like one friend who was someone I had worked with and had only been in meetings with, but when everything happened, another coworker put us in touch and she came to the NICU, and her son was a different situation, but had spent, I think, 7.5 months in the NICU. And he's 4 or 5 years older than our son. So she was like our angel that like came to us and has kind of like led us along the way. And as wonderful as it was to like meet people with HIE was just mind blowing, and being able to have that group. And so, I have my core group of girls here that we text almost every other day, some things about HIE, some things about like whatever stupid things going on in our life. But I think we were very fortunate to come into that, even though it was later. It's played a fundamental role in getting us resources as well as just letting us be and like
Yeah.
recognize like, okay, this was really, really crappy,
I remember it being,
but this is good.
I remember being frustrated in the very beginning because it wasn't a simple, it's like Down syndrome. Everybody, whatever. Not, there's a built-in community, right? If you have like one very clear diagnosis, you're on the spectrum, whatever. But with brain damage, it's like, okay, well, he's got cerebral palsy, he's got a seizure disorder, looking at all these issues. I'm like, where's a community that I can like bounce all that stuff off of? And actually Hope for HIE thanks to my bias for action, I found Hope for HIE for us.
We would have never found it with me.
You're welcome. But yeah, and then we met. Actually, it's so funny because I think I'd reached out to Betsy, and I'm an attorney by trade. And I must have sent her an email or something from my attorney account, and she thought I was one of the ambulance facing smell blood in the water sharks, that plaintiffs attorneys that was trying to exploit the HIE community. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm unlikable, but I'm actually a dad. Still an unlikable attorney, but I'm a dad. So anyway.
Well, y'all sort of went right into our next topic. And so I just want to add a couple points of just the importance of finding your community and support, whatever that looks like, whether that's local to you, whether that's global. Obviously, there are tons of resources in the Hope for HIE community. Our website has all that information. But keep trying. One thing I want to remind people, and I know we've talked about it in other panels, is it may take you a few different times with a few different groups to see what fits and works best for you. We have families in our Hope for HIE community that connect in that community, and they have other communities they connect in. So definitely just continue to try different things and try to find support early, even if that's just where it is and you may not access it right now. Know what your options are, because everybody needs support at different times, and just being able to know where that is, I think, is really helpful, just to have that reference of, if and when I need something, here's a couple different places I can go. The next thing I'd love for us to talk about is just focusing on and finding the ways to kind of live out something that's really important to me, and a really big piece of my social work practice that I know a lot of us also share in the Hope for HIE community, because I've said this to like dozens of families, is it's so important to learn and be able to have joy and sadness interchangeable, and to be able to feel those emotions even in the same situation. So if y'all could just talk a little bit about kind of focusing on what your child can do, the importance of, giving your child those experiences, their joys and their interests, and then, kind of what does that look like for you with your child? And then what are some things that you would suggest to other families as well on finding that for themselves?
Yeah, I'll sort of just pick back up on like what Andy was saying about I remember like fighting for all the therapies, all the things. I'm gonna do all the things. I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna make it better. He's gonna form the new pathways, and like it's all gonna be fine. And again, the freeing, it truly set me free when I was able to find acceptance. I feel like it happened for us around, well, for me, I'll say for me, I think it was later for my husband as well, but I think around 5 is where I was, yeah, very accepting of because like I said, at 2 I was like pretty sure of what I was going to see in the future, and then at 5 I was like, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna find the acceptance, and it set me free in a lot of ways. yeah, more relaxing than to be constantly having the brain go like, what can I do next? What can I do next? You know, like it's exhausting. It's a full-time job on top of having a job.
Mhm.
um, and then once we were able to shift that focus, it was, yeah, it was, let's figure out what he loves. Like who is he? Like instead of just this body, this, you know, this person that I'm trying to like do, it was almost like on our agenda, like to become this person that I, you know, dreamed of having. But who are you actually? You know, what are your joys in life? Yeah, we found out that he can use his eyes to speak. That was kind of an amazing discovery. Like once we realized, like, oh, if we hold up two things, he can gaze to one, and that was our rudimentary form of eye gaze communication. And then pretty early, I think he was about 4, we got a Tobii Dynavox eye gaze system, and he was able to. We put the game set in front of him, and he could play games on it. It was just like amazing, these little things you take for granted. And I really take joy in like the small things as well. Like, you know, he loves different textural things, and he really loves going to school, and he likes to go really fast in his wheelchair, really fast. Like I want to get him on a roller coaster real bad, because I think he would just love it. He's got like the best laugh in the world, best laugh in the world. I feel so thankful that he's got that. And he's like, once you take all the medical stuff away, like you just realize he's got a great personality. And so once all those little things were sort of revealed to us, like he's nonverbal, but he talks in like the way he breathes. And like, I know how he's feeling because of his heart rate. Like, I hope you guys have that too, but I'm like, he's mad because his heart rate is, you know, like it's, you find these other ways, you know, and you totally adapt your parenting to what they need, not what I want them to do. And
Mhm.
that was a huge shift for us. And yeah, I was saying to Haley before when we were prepping for this that like now that he's 10, like our mind is really shifted to quality of life. So just that is, I say it all the time, like what is good quality of life for him and our family. And so it's like every little thing we do, from like contemplating surgeries to like anything we do, is just like, is this going to give good quality of life? Is this, yeah, the mindset has just shifted from like, we need to do this to do we need to do this. And like, yeah, yeah, an interesting shift that's happened at the decade mark.
It's an important shift.
Now
Yeah.
that's interesting how that can how that mindset can sometimes yield complete opposite decisions when it comes to various medical interventions, right? Because you mentioned surgery, and it's like when you're in that I gotta fix it mode, you're not even thinking about their quality of life necessarily. You're like, okay, let's fix this immediate problem, versus when you shift to, well, what would he, what does he want? And
Mhm.
what's that going to mean for his quality of life? So yeah, big shift.
Yeah, and I think we he's always been a very musical child, very auditory since visually he has issues, but he's always liked good music. We never really had to do like the little kiddie music, and I'm so incredibly thankful for that. So he's like grown up listening to, I mean, we're lucky we like his music, and so that's been like one of the things.
90s alt rock. That's his core. But
Yeah, he does love some good anything with a good beat. It's wide eclectic. His playlist is fantastic. And but that's like kind of an example of like how we've gotten to know him and like help figure out this communication stuff. We're in the process of getting a communication device, but you were talking, Clarissa, about like him being able to look and choose like that way. With us, it was like turn this way or that way and asking him like yes or no or multiple choice questions. And he's gotten great at it, so much to the point he refuses to use a communication device with us because he knows we understand him. Apparently does it all day at school, but not with us.
Oh,
Um,
same here. Just to tell you, you're not alone. He will literally close his eyes and refuse to do
uh-huh.
it
The
or
one
turn his
time
head
he did it,
away.
yeah, the one time he did it for me was like he got off the bus. I like brought him in. I was like all excited, like we were gonna actually set it up and be good, right? And I was like, "Hey, Cole, you want to?" I don't remember if I said, "Tell me about your day" or like use your device or something. And he did, "I do not want," and that was it. And I was like, "This is fantastic. I love this, and it's age appropriate." But we could do it again, maybe, right? Like maybe another time. Nope, not at all.
everybody in our family including Cole, like to push Sarah's buttons and intentionally annoy her. And it was interesting to see him do that in in
His
his
own
own
way.
way.
Yeah. But like we've able to do the communication with, okay, like we know you like music, let's build a playlist, like and have him select which songs go on it. Like we'll be listening to something, we realize he likes it, we ask him, and then we're like, do you want to add this to your playlist? And sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But that's I think been kind of our biggest like gateway into his personality. It happens to be music and like, okay, like for me, the 10th birthday wasn't hard, it was the 12th. I don't know why that one hit me so much differently than others, but that was the one that got me in my feels, more so than any other one, which was it was kind of weird because I felt like I was beyond that, but no, I wasn't. Apparently not. Don't think I ever will. But like the music really helped in that too. Like that's what we did for his birthday. Like, okay, we're gonna go see this concert, and like it was all of us, and we all had a great time. And I think that shift that we spoke of, and then like learning more about him and really getting to know him has improved his relationship with his sister too, because she's now at the age where she's recognizing like how what he likes, and she knows that she's his favorite person in the family, and she likes to tell everyone that. And she does not like when he's laughing at her when she's in trouble, but there's like a lot more like true sibling little tiny interactions that we're seeing now than we were previously, I think, when we have that whole different mindset.
Haley, you mentioned finding joy amid the sadness. I have a little story about that actually. Um, and it pertains to what y'all have been saying. So like Sarah said, Cole loves music, and I remember, and she also mentioned like how, again, going back to grief, like sometimes you don't think about stuff and it just like kind of sneaks up on you.
Mhm.
Julie Keon has a really good book called What Would I Tell You? If y'all have never read that, I would recommend reading it. And she talks about grief, like sometimes it'll just like unexpectedly knock on your door, and the best way to deal with it is just to let it in and have a beer with it or whatever, and then send it on its way. But I was getting ready to go on a work trip, and Sarah and our daughter were not home at the time, so it was just Cole and me. And he's got this record player, and I put on for the first time in a long time. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Sturgill Simpson. He's a country music guy, and he had an album that came out a few years ago called "A Sailor's Guide to Earth," and it was about his first child, his first son. And each song is like as his child gets older, it's him giving fatherly advice. And the first song, I can't remember what it's called, but the first song on the album is about his child's birth. And it starts out kind of scary sounding, and then it's like tender sound. It's like a really cool song. And unexpectedly, I'm not like a big crier, but I just started like losing it because I'm sitting there watching it with Cole, and they were like sad tears initially. And so I go over and like I'm like, Cole, I'm so embarrassed, I'm crying. And I went and held his hand and I looked at him, and he gave me this smile that was as if to say, like, that's how he communicates. These facial expressions say are worth 1,000 words, right? And he basically told me like, stop being a cheese ball, Dad. You don't have to. It's okay to cry. First of all, you don't have to be ashamed of it. Second of all, you're a cheese ball. He's kind of making fun of me, like, and laughing with me. And then that suddenly made the tears of sadness kind of become tears of joy. And so that's sort of like a very microscopic example of finding joy in the sadness for me. And where it's like, this stuff just kind of pops out on you. In her case, the 12th birthday. In my case, I'm folding laundry and listening to Sturgill Simpson. It just comes out of nowhere. But it was also an unforgettable moment that I had with my son that, it's going to stay with me forever. So
I love that. Thank you for
top that, Sarah.
Who invited him?
So one thing that we were going to talk about too, just briefly, is just also kind of figuring out the other parts of your own identity outside of being a parent. I know when we've met with each of us kind of individually talking about y'all's journey, we talked about, in the very beginning, it's just kind of all consuming and you're trying to navigate so many things. So if you can share a little bit about how you did that transition of like, okay, yes, I'm my child's caregiver and I have these identities, but how do I also care for myself, whether that's work, hobbies, family activities, just anything like that, that you kind of over the years have figured out, to kind of bring yourself and give yourself the things that you need so that you can be a caregiver.
Oh man, this is a heavy one. I just want to give everyone reassurance that like if you still don't know who you are on this journey and you're still just a caregiver, like it's normal. And yeah, it is so hard to get out of it, honestly. Like I want to say like 8 years old, I think I started to shift from the like our bubble, the cloud that was upon us. I don't know. I think he was 8 years old when I was like, okay, wow, like I am not well. I don't know who I am anymore. Who am I? I'm a nurse. Like I became a nurse like overnight. Like literally, I had no medical background. Like, and I know so much more than anyone. Like I know more than anyone is ever supposed to know. Like I'm a nurse now. Now I just finished. I went went back to school, ironically, but thank you. um, but wow, and actually all of that helped my schooling a lot. But
I bet.
I was so much though to just have this fragile child that has had like every year there's something else, some other diagnosis, some other like it never stops. There's just another layer of this unraveling onion, and I've had to like, yeah, how can you be anything other than that? You know, like so anyway, I just want to say it is so valid if you who is watching this just feels like, yeah, okay, Haley, like I'm not, how can I get out of it? Because it's so hard. Okay, how did I get out of it?
And that's why we talk about this, to validate other
Yeah,
families to know they are not alone in all the things that they feel.
yeah. It took people around me, I think, seeing that I was like losing myself, I think, in a sense, like best friends, like family, even my husband, like just being like, you need a break. Like you clearly like you need to stop. And I would say like with all the medical stuff, like I became so the word that always stands out to me is hypervigilant. Like I was so it was hard to accept any other people caring for him because I can do it best. And that includes my poor husband. Like sometimes he's like, I don't even know how to like for him to the extent that you do because you never let me in to, you know, because I was like, but I do it best. And I understand, guys, that this is a problem, but it's better now. But it was hard. It was really hard to sort of like let go of that hypervigilance. And I think that comes with trauma and anxiety and grief. But the more that I sort of let people in, we got nursing support when he was 8. So we have lots and lots of people, lots of support now. I felt very, very isolated and unsupported before 8. And this is just a Canadian thing. Our system is, I mean, the system's awful everywhere, but we had to fight and fight and fight for nursing support, even though we have a very complex child. But yeah, that really turned things around when I actually had, okay, people are coming in. I can actually like take my other 2 little kids and you know, take them to do things that would be hard to do with Huxley. Like that was really, really wonderful. So I feel really grateful for that support. So also accepting support because I know how hard it is, but just say yes. If someone's offering, say yes, it's going to be okay. They can do it. You can teach them and you need it because yeah, otherwise who are you? You know, like you deserve to like be someone other than a caregiver because you are, who were you prior to all of this? You know, like you can find that person again. Like I really do think that you can. Like guys, I went to school. That's crazy. How about you guys?
Yeah, I think there's kind of like an ebb and flow in that journey. Like I said, we've been pretty fortunate with having a strong like support system to varying degrees from the beginning. But I think we don't have nursing or anything like that. And it kind of got better, like you said, as we got more support, if that makes any sense. We were able to start like, okay, we should take care of ourselves. Let's do a date night, you know, like once every week or every other week. And that kind of helped us start feeling like real people again. I think also having our daughter forced us out of just the like medical, you know, necessity of our world. I think in doing that also, we had to like come to the realization that like not only was it for ourselves, but like both of our kids. So now that he's older, there's a couple of different summer camps he goes to. And so when we when he goes to camp, we try to do something special with our daughter that we maybe wouldn't be able to do if he was around. So we love the beach. He does not really, and it's very difficult to get him to the beach. So the last couple of years, we take him to camp and then we drive down to the beach and have a few days there, just the three of us, and it's great. And we definitely talk about him and stuff, but it's weird to not have to be around like, oh, okay, it's time for medicine. Like I'll literally look at my clock and I'm like, oh, are you doing? Oh, we don't have to, you know? But I think that realization of like how we found ourselves includes like how we help even our daughter find herself in those, because I think she doesn't realize yet, and I don't think we were realizing too, like how much this was impacting her as well.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is I think in our case it's happened organically,
Mhm.
not only because of his little sister and her, us, we taken care of her as well and have taken her around to do her things, but also like as he's gotten older, and he still loves us and he likes to spend time with us. But what 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid wants to be with their parents 24/7,
Yes.
right? And so like I sometimes I forget it's like, Cole, do you want to come hang out with us at on the couch, or do you want to go watch a movie in your room? And every time it's like, I want to go in my room, get away from y'all.
Yeah.
You know,
Andy will try to force him to hang out and then he gets mad. I'm like, please just
I don't
leave
get
him alone.
mad. I just,
No,
it's,
not you. Cole gets mad.
oh, Cole gets, yeah.
And
I
he
just get my
doesn't-
feelings hurt. That's all.
Exactly. It's just really funny because even our daughter will be like, leave him alone. He doesn't want you.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
She
hard
really,
pill to swallow.
she really
but-
cuts to my core. But yeah, I think it just kind of happens naturally. And yeah, that's a good point with the camps. I mean, if y'all ever get a chance, whoever's listening, there are in our region, there's a couple of camps during the summer, and it's so hard to find things like useful things for him to do over the summer. Those have been an absolute godsend, but for the
Mhm.
reasons Sarah articulated. And I talked to other parents that like really have trouble letting go, and entrusting their child's care with somebody else. But it's been such a great experience. And I hate to keep using the word liberating, but it's very liberating.
It's great.
for us. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
The last thing I briefly want to touch on, just so we can have a little bit, because I know there's going to be a lot of questions for y'all, is just, I know both of you have expressed, that you have other children and kind of navigating everyone's needs. And I know you are not the only ones in the community. So if you would just sort of share briefly about kind of any tips or things that you have, like I know you've already shared a little bit about like the camps and then taking their children different places, but just anything else you want to add to, how do you work on meeting the needs of your children and then those conversations with your kids to just sort of make sure everybody's getting what they need?
What do we do?
I know. I'm like,
I know it's tough. It's yeah, and there's a lot of like guilt sometimes, and no, there's times that Hux is feeling really rough. We don't have support, and the kids are saying, "Can we go on a bike ride?" And I'm like, "Oh, we can't leave. Like we're stuck right now. He's not well, and he can't go." Sometimes we have to divide and conquer, so we do that quite a bit. It was kind of I think it was hard at first and kind of upsetting to have to, because of course in the perfect world we would all go as a family unit and do the things, but like just realizing like, nope, like Matt, my husband, is gonna go take the kids to the bike ride. I'm gonna hang out with Hux, and that's fine. And then we swap at another time, and just making sure our kids and their interests, like we pursue them. Like my daughter loves dance, so we make sure we put her in dance class, and we make sure we put it in the schedule so that we can make sure that happens. Yeah, those are things. Those are basic things, but that's all I can think of right now.
That's great tips.
yeah, I think we're similar. One thing with our daughter, she hasn't done this in a while, but every now and then she would kind of ask a question. So when she was like really little, how we explained what happened to him to her was like when he was born, he got a bobo on his brain. He was in the hospital, he was sick. And it now takes him longer to learn things. Like we just kept it as simple as that. And she kind of be like, oh, okay, whatever. And then like fast forward a little bit later, I hear her telling someone that. And I was like, oh, one, she pays attention and listens. And two, like it was just really sweet to hear her explain it. And so I think like being like pretty open with her in like an age appropriate way has been great. I think like you were saying, Clarissa, like she's also into dance, so like making sure we support her in what she's interested in. Just today, trying to like sort out the schedule and be like, how are we fitting your stuff in, because she grew up going to his therapies and like watching people come over for his stuff. And now she was always like, why aren't they here for me? And so now it's kind of like seeing how she does it in her own way. But I'd also say like maybe like one thing that we kind of go back and forth with sometimes is like second guessing, and we just can't second guess as much. Like sometimes we'll be, I feel like I'm a little better at it than you. Like maybe like, oh, I wish we hadn't done this or whatnot. And it's like, no, we can't go back in time. Like we are where we are and we're happy where we are. So let's not like revisit like whatever happened that way. But I think it's something that we've kind of even like brought in like with her, like live in the moment and like let's focus on this and try not to get too anxious about the future. Let's not worry so much about this. Let's just try and be together, be whatever it is. Let's do this.
Yeah, our daughter's basically a smaller version of Sarah in both appearance and personality. So I just defer to Sarah with all things with our daughter. No, I don't. I mean that's all good advice. Being transparent and honest with them, and whereas you're hyper aware of their perception of you spending more time with the medically complex child, just taking the time to explain, hey, you understand, we love you, and this is why we have to spend more time with Cole, and they'll say stuff that, well, again, cut to your core about that, but they'll get it. They get
Yeah.
it.
And
And it
it's
makes
like,
them so much. I think like the siblings call them super siblings. I mean, they're just to have an experience like that at such an early age, to have a sibling uh, with complex medical needs and see like life is not a bouquet of roses all the time. I mean, I think it's just it makes them more resilient. It makes them more empathetic. Um, I think it's a net positive.
Yeah, those are my hopes too. They'll make them better people. Little silver
Yeah.
lining.
And
Yeah.
one of the awesome resources, if you're not aware, is our awesome child life specialist has our Super Sibs program. So for anyone who hasn't enrolled their child, this is a program specifically for siblings of children with HIE, and they have all different activities for all different ages. So definitely check that out. Before we close, I'll kind of share in a minute about just some last things, but is there anything else that any of you would like to share with any of the families before we kind of close this out for today?
I think we hit all the bullets.
yeah.
I think we did. I just want to say thank you. I know that everybody is going to be tuning into this many times because we've gotten a lot of information about people being really excited. So I just want to thank the three of you for being open and honest and willing to share. I know everything that you guys talked about is going to really resonate with so many families today and many, many, many families to come on our YouTube channel. Again, please reach out to me for any additional resources. Check out our website, all our social medias, really anything Hope for HIE related. We put everything everywhere you can find. But again, thank you guys so much for sharing today. We really appreciate your insight, and just thank you again for being so open and honest. See everyone next time.